8:03, and thank you for coming. Today, this is the meeting of the Board of 1 South Euclid. It's February 5th, 2015 at 8 a.m. I am Keith Benjamin, interim president, and we're here today first to conduct the annual meeting of the Board of Directors, and we're going to go through the old business first, the regular business of the meeting, and then we're going to have a swearing-in ceremony, and that'll take place probably around 8:40, 8:45 of the new members and election of officers. So with that, before we actually get started with a roll call of the board, why don't we go around the room and introduce ourselves and tell a little bit about what our affiliation is and what we do. Quickly, yes, we can do it quickly. So, Keith Benjamin, Director of Community Services for the City of South Euclid.
Pam O'Toole, my husband Jim and I founded the Avondale Argonne Neighborhood Group almost 4 years ago. I've been with South Euclid, 1 South Euclid since 2012, and I'm the board secretary.
I'm Austin Welter. I'm pastor of St. John Lutheran across the street from Giant Eagle and treasurer here on 1 South Euclid.
Angie Pullman, executive director at the Heights Hillcrest Regional Chamber of Commerce. I've been living in South Euclid for 28 years and have been serving on the board for a little over a year.
I'm Theron Cyrus. I have a small investment business here in South Euclid, Cyrus Asset Management. I have been invited to be on the board. I've been in South Euclid for about 21 years. And that's me.
And I'm Veronica Walton, Executive Director of Neo Restoration Alliance, and I live on Winston, where there's another cute pocket park, and I've been a resident for about 20 years.
I'm Jay Boland, resident of South Euclid for just a few years, and I've been coming to board meetings for a couple years now, just listening.
I'm Tom Dank, in South Euclid for 12 years on Harwood Road. I work at home. I'm an operations analyst for Bank of America, and I've been coming to these meetings for several years.
I'm Greg McCarthy. I'm an assistant executive director of this place, and glad to be here, and thank you for asking me to participate. I've been here about 22 years now.
My name is Al Painter. I'm a South Euclid resident for about 40 years. I'm a professional home inspector, residential home inspector, and I've served on various committees of the city on and off for probably the last 5-6 years.
Sally Martin, City's housing manager, resident since 2001.
Jim O'Toole, Avondale Argonne Neighborhood Group, resident for 26 years.
I'm Glenn Calabrese. I'm retired now. Previously, for almost 25 years, I was the head of the Social Justice Office at the Catholic Diocese, and then was president of Catholic Community Connection. I'm in Cutter's Creek for 3 years now. And before that was in University Heights, so close.
I'm Meg Martinez. I'm the director of the South Euclid Community Center and a South Euclid resident for about 12 years.
I'm Daniel Subwick with the City of South Euclid. I'm a housing inspector.
I'm Michael Love, Economic Development Director for the city. Just bought a condo, so officially, once again, a South Euclid resident.
Anthony Holman, resident, 21 years, 3 kids, graduate from Brush High School, business owner. I own Anthony's Place Bar and Grill, Lounge 360, and in the process of opening up Sleep Keepers in the same plaza.
Yvonne Sanderson, been on the 1 South Euclid board since 2001, I believe. 26-year resident of South Euclid, a returned native Clevelander and South Euclidean, owner of Focal Plane Photography, with my pilot husband, Mark.
Morning, I'm Karen Colking. I've also been on the board of 1 South Euclid since 2001, or no,
2011.
Not 11, I meant. I was going to say, wait a minute, 2001, I didn't figure it out. I wrote down 2001, I started doing the math, but you stopped. That being said, I'm also a lifelong resident. I've been a resident of South Euclid for over 50 years, so that lived on Bedford, lived on Plainfield, and now live on Yammon Road. And I'm currently the vice president for board and community relations at Notre Dame College, where I've worked there for 35 years.
And Sonia, do you want to just introduce yourself? We're going around the room.
Hi, I'm Sonia Pryor Jones. I'm a South Euclid resident for 12 years now, and actually just started my own consulting business, Synchronicity Consulting on January 16th. Great.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Okay, we will start with the business of 1 South Euclid, and then, as we said, at about 8:40, we will move forward with the swearing in of the new board members and then election of officers. So, Madam Secretary, can we have the roll call, please?
Sure. Keith Benjamin.
Here.
Karen Polking. Here. Pam O'Toole. Here. Austin Walter.
Here.
Yvonne Sanderson.
Here.
Anthony Holman.
Here.
Angie Pullman.
Here. Okay. Second item on the agenda is the approval of minutes of the Thursday, January 8, 2015 regular meeting. The board had a chance to review the minutes, and are there any corrections, additions, changes, discussion regarding those minutes? Hearing none, can I, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Or abstain? Okay. Minutes are approved. Next up is our monthly financial report. Pastor?
So just past the minutes, you'll see the financial report. And this is the way that we're going to be doing it from now on, submitting the written report. So it just quickly summarizes summarizes income, expenses, and just main events, big things that have happened. So two things. Here's the 2014 year-end report, just some things to take a look at. Total income was just over $77,000, and of which $60,000 was through the property sales. That was 78% of all income was through property sales, and we've talked about that before. Total expenses were $60,000. The two largest expenses were the administrative, nearing $25,000, and then the Greenfield Streetscape project work, which was nearly $14,000. And then just to compare the year-end totals, 2013, we ended up with $88,000 cash, and then the end of 2014, $109,000. So that's the year-end, and then year-to-date, total cash right now between the PNC and the credit union account, which you see below, is just over $104,000. Through the first month, there's no income to report, but there were 3 expenses, and you see what they were totaling, $1,742 for Janice, which was told that expense was for her to be at the last meeting, and she wasn't there, so I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe we could ask her about that.
Okay.
Okay. That's how that expense was explained to me, and I know that she wasn't there.
Okay.
So.
All right. To come to the board.
To come to the board.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that is correct. She was not. And yeah. Okay. We should straighten that. Thank you.
Janice Purdy is, for those of you who are new, Janice Purdy was our strategic planning consultant who's been working with us.
Yes. So as the strategic planning subcommittee chair, I'll
All right, great.
check with
Thank
you
you.
on that. Thank you. Yeah.
And then the Ohio CDC membership renewal, which we approved last time, $225, and then the lamp post for Argonne Pocket Park, which was taken out of their funds that they had set aside, was $1,400. And in the reports that you see now, we talked about this a little bit last meeting, but what was the statement of position, we can name the balance sheet to help differentiate that from some of the other reports. And then finally, the letter of engagement from Ann needs to be approved. I think last year it was actually sent off to the lawyers for approval before the board approved it. And she said if you want to do that again, that's fine, just to make sure everything is.
Are there
the way we want it.
any changes to her annual contract?
I didn't notice anything.
I don't think so.
Okay. We'll leave it to the board to decide whether you want to. Certainly, we're not she's not going anywhere, she'll wait another month before we keep the contract if necessary.
I know it was emailed out,
Yeah.
but Mike, I don't see it in this packet.
Yeah.
No, because it came after the
Okay.
packet.
Okay.
But I did send it, so.
You didn't see any change yet, it's the exact same?
I have a copy.
Ann Randall is our accountant, our CPA, and has done just a fantastic job keeping our finances, our financial states, and working on our balance sheets, and as well as our tax filing as well. She does a great job.
And her rates are remaining the same, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
That was- we could
Same
certainly make a
rate.
motion to-
I think we could make a motion, take a vote, so.
So we're gonna keep her waiting.
Okay.
So
I'd be happy to do that.
I'll make that motion to approve our letter of engagement with Ann Randall for 2015.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to approve the letter of engagement, the annual contract between Ann Randall and One South Euclid. Is this her third year with us?
I think-
Second year.
Second year, second full year.
Maybe, yeah, 2.5 years. I think.
Could I just jump in for a second? Each of the board members now has motion forms. Anybody making a motion, if it's not one I already have, could you just fill it out, sign it, make sure I have it before the end of the meeting? Thank you.
Will do.
I have extras, Austin, if you need one.
I think.
I got it.
All right, there's been a motion and a second to approve this year's contract with Ann Randall. Roll call, please.
Keith Benjamin.
Aye.
Karen Polk.
Aye.
Pam O'Toole. Aye. Austin Walter.
Aye.
Yvonne Sanderson.
Aye.
Anthony Holman.
Aye.
Angie Pullman.
Aye.
Okay, motion is approved. Any other reports regarding the monthly finance report? Questions, comments?
No, just thank you for the synopsis. That's
Yeah,
very
that's
Yeah,
really
I-
helpful.
yeah,
That
the
was
new-
great.
help out. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Thank
new
you.
synopsis really is great, and it makes it very clear to,
Yes.
not only to board members, but to members of the public as well, exactly where we're at and how we're doing.
It's
My
great.
data makes-
It's like a
Good.
cheat sheet.
Good.
Finance report.
Okay, next up is committee reports, and we'll start with the Residential Revitalization Committee.
Well, it's, I guess, between me and Dan. It's a bit slow this winter, and we're waiting on the county to foreclose on some other prospects for us. We have a few waiting in the wings. It's just taking what seems like forever. We also have a stuck property in Donwell we're in the middle of a transaction for, and that's taking time to get through the legal process of clearing the title so that we can transfer it to the person who has purchased it from us. We're also I'm told that Stillmore has sold the property that Fixler bought from us, which was an absolute tear down, and he sold it for 109s.
Wow.
That was a really positive outcome.
That's great.
I think it was 109, right, Michael? 108, 109?
105. I think.
Sorry.
105.
Still.
So optimistic.
Still.
It's 10 something.
But the
That
point
was-
is, he broke 100,000, and the
Yeah.
house was a tear down. It was an absolute disaster. So it was a really, really great outcome for us.
I'm amazed.
It is
That
amazing.
house, seeing that house before.
You know how bad it was.
It was ready to just, yeah, it was
Yeah,
a demolition.
it was.
Wow.
So it gives us a lot of hope that the program works. The program creates great comps in neighborhoods. So, we're being as aggressive as always about tax foreclosure. It's just the county is less aggressive at pursuing the quick resolution that we would like to see. So, the economy is rebounding. Our values are up. Our median sale price for houses this year just under $100,000 in South Euclid. Plain Dealer reported us as having a 14.5% gain from last year in housing values. These are great things. Voting, we got voted by Keller Williams as a top 10 community and the top third community for first-time home buyers, so starter home community.
And in the top 10, we were the the only east side inner-ring suburb. There were
Yeah.
only 2 inner-ring suburbs mentioned in the top 10. It was
Yeah.
Fairview Park and South Euclid.
Right. So we're in the company of places like Concord and things like that in our book because they saw this
So-
resurgence in values that they thought was pretty dramatic in South Euclid. So the news is good. But the news is less good in terms of distressed properties and are obtaining them now because the market's competing for them more. So we're seeing a lot of things going privately that we would have maybe gotten a hold of in the past. So I think this does suggest that this revenue stream is not going to sustain us for too much longer, and we have to look outside this. But it's been fabulous. So.
Yeah.
It's a win-win.
Great solution.
It really has. Yeah.
Kudos again.
Any other questions or updates? Dan, do you have anything?
Yeah, so I'm the program coordinator of the South Euclid Community Gardens, a network of 7 community gardens started by Sally, and we have over 100 gardeners. So a date I just wanted to throw at you guys is Saturday, March 28th. We're going to have our annual breakfast at Whole Foods. They very graciously set us up with space and some breakfast food, and that's where we meet for the first time, kind of first meeting for all the gardeners to get together and plan out their year. Again, that's Saturday, March 28th, and that's at 8:30 in the morning at Whole Foods. So on March 2nd, we'll be having our garden lottery, and that's our way of making sure if more people want plots that they're able to get it in a fair and equal way. So by March 2nd, I'll have a pretty good idea of who's in each one of the gardens. And they'll also be sending us plot fees of $20 to 1 South Euclid.
Did you want to talk about Bexley?
Bexley Garden is our newest garden. It'll be at the end of Maple Grove Road in an open space. It started last year through a grassroots effort from some residents in the nearby area. And so we invested some money into it. It's going to be a really nice garden. Right now it's currently in the bid process. So we're going to be selecting a contractor fairly soon. And we hope to see work start when the weather breaks.
So same spot?
Yeah.
Same spot, exactly.
It's going to be gorgeous.
It really is.
It may be one of our best ones yet.
Hello. Hi, Ann.
Yeah, grab a chair down there.
You've been rehired, Ann.
This is Ann Randall, our CPA.
Very
See, I
good
timed it
timing.
that way. Yeah, we is there another chair?
You know what, I think I can be here. Is it okay?
Yeah, let's pull this in.
For those of you who aren't aware, who are new or coming on the board, the garden fees, the plot fees, those $20 fees are collected, and they go into a community garden account, and then all of the money collected goes back for the maintenance and improvement of the gardens, which has been fantastic. So Argonne is getting a new solar lamp.
They bought them.
We're
Yeah.
getting 3 new old-fashioned lampposts.
Oh, awesome.
If you're not
And they're
familiar,
here.
if you're not familiar, the residents of Avondale, Argonne collect
Collect
money
their
in
own
of
money.
themselves,
Right.
but 1 South Euclid holds it for us. So
Right.
while it's technically coming out of 1 South Euclid, it is a private fund held for us.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Next up is Commercial Revitalization Committee.
So I did put together a report. Should be right behind the financials, I believe. There it is. So there's a couple items of new business coming out of the Commercial Committee this month. The first is the continuation of Greenfield. So as we discussed when Greenfield was initially installed last year, and for those of you who may be unfamiliar with it, Greenfield is the streetscape improvements that were made at Mayfield and Green last year. I know it doesn't look the greatest right now with 4 feet of snow on the ground, but come spring it will look really nice again. So basically, as part of the Greenfield project, it's been a joint City 1 South Euclid project. 1 South Euclid has been the primary funder for the infrastructure improvements that were made, such as the installation of the bike racks and the benches, whereas the city has been primarily responsible for continued maintenance. So the city is purchasing all of the plants purchasing the hanging baskets, purchased the banners last year, which will be going back up. So this year, for continued growth of Greenfield, which as we did discuss, was something that we wanted to continue to see and continue to grow the streetscape, we would be asking 1 South Euclid for $3,000 today to purchase an additional 3 benches for Greenfield. The other request today on the agenda is for the Rock the Block event. So this is an inaugural event this year that's going to be held on Saturday, June 13th from 12 to 8 p.m. on Mayfield Road between South Green and Belvoir. The exact location is still being decided, but St. John's is likely to be sort of the center of the event. And it's basically a Mayfield street fair to try to bring attention to Mayfield, showcase the Mayfield Road businesses. There'll be music, food. The businesses will have an opportunity to set up table outside. There'll be food vendors. And the event itself is being planned by a Rock the Block planning committee, which is being led by Tony Caroscio. So this is a volunteer committee that's actually separate from 1 South Euclid. However, there's going to be different sponsors for the events. Primarily right now, the sponsors that are on board are the 4 bars along the stretch between Green and Belvoir, which are the Black Forest, Riverstone, Rummy's, and also Geppetto's and Johnny Malloy's. So basically what the committee has talked about is actually 1 South Euclid serving as the fiscal agent for the event. So at this point, there would be no cost to 1 South Euclid to do that, other than the fact that all monies collected for the event from the various sponsors would come into 1 South Euclid, and then all expenses associated with the event, such as hiring the bands, renting a stage, potentially paying, for other things, would actually come out of 1 South Euclid. So again, it would be a cost-neutral event for 1 South Euclid, but it's just a way to actually allow the event to happen so that sponsors can just give their money to one organization, and then one organization is issuing payment versus all these different entities trying to book bands and potentially working against each other without even meaning to do so. We just thought that it could be the cleanest way possible, is just everybody give to 1 South Euclid, and then 1 South Euclid issue the payment. So I think that pretty much covers it for today.
Any questions about Rock the Block events?
Wasn't there something last month about someone checking on the liability or something from them? Like what our liability was?
Yeah. We would not be liable.
They checked on it.
Yes.
Okay, that's all.
Yeah. Let's see here. Or we would be covered by liability, right? We have insurance. All right, thanks, Mike. Any other comments or questions? We will move on to Marketing and Community Development Committee. Well, it was under new business, so I thought we would wait until we would get there.
Pam, I apologize, I didn't send you a summary for the committee marketing, but I encourage you to visit oneSouthEuclid.org if you haven't already. Take a look at our official website, and that's hopefully why I'm recording this audio, is that we can put this into like a podcast form and just put it up on our website for people to listen to. And Pam, she can listen to it and make minutes a little bit easier as well. But it's also a great tool for us to market ourselves, and especially our social media, which we've been increasing our Twitter following, and we've increased our Facebook following as well recently. And as far as the committee chair, I will be vacating that position today, and another board member will have to assume that role. So that's pretty much it, Keith.
Okay, thank very much. Any questions? All right, we'll move on to Governance Committee report.
Okay,
I didn't know if you wanted to do that with the swearing in ceremony or if you wanted to do it
either
now.
way if you
It's
want.
really up to you.
why don't we do the motions? I mean, let's go on to new business. I know you
Okay.
have something, and then I think because we can concise if the moment's coming, we want.
Right, yeah, I think that.
Okay. Governance Committee report will come after new business. The first item under new business is authorization to fund at a cost not to exceed $500 Hamill Tools attendance at and presentation to the Reclaiming Vacant Properties Conference, May 19th through 21 in Detroit. And I'll turn over to Sally to give an explanation.
And if I may, Mr. President, I'd like to ask that this be amended to not to exceed $1,000 because I think 500 is going to be a little tight. Having spoken and attended these before, even with some of the fees being waived, I don't want to leave us short for her. I don't think it'll get to $1,000, but I think it'll be somewhere in that spot. So
Okay.
if we could make that motion, amend that motion once it's made. I think this is a huge honor for our organization. It's a national conference. There's usually about 3,000 attendees. It's basically highlighting best practices throughout the U.S. for people who, communities like ours who are having to deal with adversity with vacant property issues and what they've done to combat them. So this isn't the first time we've been held up in such a way, and I think we should be very, very proud. And I think really what made our proposal strong was also having a community member speak with us, to really bring it home that this is a grassroots effort. The city collaborating with residents, collaborating with a nonprofit group, I think is extremely innovative. And I think speaking at this conference also gives us the kind of exposure to go to bigger foundations and make a pitch. So I think it sets us up for additional funding, which is very, very important. I think we can all be proud that we had this honor. We've also been invited to speak at the Ohio Policy Conference, which is going to be, anybody knows Levea Brockman, down in Columbus.
This is Greater Ohio.
Greater Ohio, yes. I call it the Levea Brockman Conference. That's just what I think of when I think of it. We're not sure, if it's all three of us again, because it was basically the same proposal we submitted to them as well, and they put us on the agenda without telling us, which is really fun. We just happened to see an email, and we saw South Euclid, and we thought, well, were you going to tell us? So yeah, we're on the lecture circuit. It's good, but we don't know if it's just going to be one of us, if it's going to be the group again. But that one would just be a one day and back, so we wouldn't be incurring expense if we do go to that one.
Okay.
So.
What's the organization? Is it called Reclaiming Vacant Properties? Is that the what organization?
It's a large organization, and it's changed names about 4 times, and I don't know why. But the Reclaiming Vacant Properties Conference is its signature event for the year. I'm trying to think of the name, and of course I'm doing aphasia in my old age.
Find it here.
Yes, thank you, Michael.
Any
It used
questions?
to be run by Congressman Dan Kildee when it first started. So it's changed hands. It's out of D.C. It's the group that runs it, and it's for us.
Community Progress.
Yeah.
Center for Community
Center
Progress.
for Community Progress.
We used to have a different name, but
Vacant spaces into
vibrant
places.
There you go.
Yes, good.
Okay.
It's a great-
That's good.
we call it the Who's Who of Slum and Blight.
Okay.
It's a big deal in our circle.
Are there any questions? Any questions at all?
No, I would just ask that we capitalize on this. If you guys can come back with some PR for our marketing purposes, would be great.
We will do that.
Pictures and
You know us.
They'll be tweeting from there.
Yeah.
for
Live
sure.
tweeting.
there you go.
We will.
Okay. Hearing no other comments, is there a motion? Well, we don't even have to amend. Is there a motion to fund at a cost not to exceed $1,000 Pam O'Toole's attendance at and presentation to the Reclaiming Vacant Properties Conference, May 19th through 21st in Detroit, Michigan.
And I'm a little new to this process of having this written. Do we still need to make a verbal motion? Is that the-
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, this is just
Yeah,
a
for
cheat
Now,
sheet,
we
that's all
have
this is.
a written one with 500.
Right, so we
We
need to
could
amend
probably
that.
just change that and initial it.
Right, this is
Whatever.
just a cheat sheet.
this is
Yeah.
just a
Okay,
cheat
all
sheet.
right.
Right, or
So-
you could just write a new one if you wanted to.
I wouldn't think of that.
No, you can just, because it's not official yet.
And again, this is just one, Pam O'Toole's, and the city is funding Mike and Sally's.
I would just suggest that somebody change it and initial it other than Pam O'Toole.
Yeah, like I said,
I can do
This
that.
isn't a record.
this
Is
isn't
a
a record
record.
keeping.
It's not a-
This is
yeah.
for us, so we keep track of what the motion says. So, I would like to make a motion authorizing the allocation of funds in the amount not to exceed $1,000 for the purpose of allowing Pam O'Toole to attend and present at the Reclaiming Vacant Properties Conference, May 19 through 21 in Detroit. Or
Nice.
Detroit, if you're from
Yes, boy.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Roll call.
Keith Benjamin.
Aye.
Karen Polkane.
Aye.
Don Sanderson.
Aye.
Pam O'Toole. Aye. Austin Walter.
Aye.
Anthony Holman. Angie Pullman.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Next up on the agenda is an authorization to allocate an amount not to exceed $3,000 for the purpose of purchasing benches for the Greenfield Community Garden. As Mike talked about earlier, the Greenfield Community Garden project, Mayfield and Green, was transformed last year with the Greenfield Garden project and the city's purchase of the new banners and the flowers and the hanging flower baskets. One of the things we wanted to do now that the Greenfield Community Garden is in place on that corner of Mayfield is to kind of start to fill out the other parts of the Mayfield and Green Business District. And so part of that are the purchase of the permanent benches that will match the existing benches that were installed last year by the Greenfield Garden project. Are there any comments or questions?
Which corner are the new benches for?
Like Russia there.
Okay.
That's right.
I will move to allocate funds of the amount not to exceed $3,000 for the purpose of purchasing additional benches for the Greenfield Community Garden on Mayfield Road.
Second. Oh, go ahead, Anthony.
Motion's been made and seconded by Anthony Holman. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Keith Benjamin.
Aye.
Karen Polkane.
Aye.
Don Sanderson.
Aye.
Pam O'Toole. Aye. Austin Walter.
Aye.
Anthony Holman.
Aye.
Angie Pullman.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next on the agenda is the authorization for One South Euclid to serve as the fiscal agent for the Saturday, June 13, 2015 Rock the Block, the Mayfield Road Street Fair. As we have done in the past for other organizations and neighborhood groups, One South Euclid, one of the main reasons why why One South Euclid was implemented in the first place was to be a way for community organizations and neighborhood groups to solicit for funds and also a way for those funds to be tax deductible for charitable purposes. And so this is kind of the same thing with the Mayfield Road Street Fair. I know that there's potentially a charitable component that at the event the group will be collecting that will go to a community neighborhood charity. And so Mike talked about this a little bit before. Are there any comments or questions about One South Euclid serving as a fiscal agent for this project?
No, I think we covered it last time. Since our CPA is in the room, do you have anything you wanted to add?
I mean, I have to admit that because it's my job, I'm sitting here thinking of worst case. I'm just trusting this crowd to keep a lid on these guys and not have them go out and sign crazy contracts, and then we're like, oh, well, yeah, didn't we tell you about this after the fact? I do trust this group, so that's all.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I'm working with that group too. I'm on that
There you go.
committee.
So are Mike and I.
You're definitely part of this
Yeah.
group
So
that I trust.
and our legal counsel can look over any contracts that are signed.
Right, when
If we're the fiscal agent, I think that we need to make certain that our legal counsel reviews all contracts, since we're serving as the fiscal agent.
We need that on the motion.
So if we can, is there a motion then to authorize One South Euclid to serve as the fiscal agent for the Rock the Block on Mayfield Road on June 13th? And as part of that motion, to ensure that that our legal counsel reviews all contracts or agreements that are signed as a component of the Rock the Block event.
I think you just made the
I
motion,
made-
but I don't think you're
okay.
allowed to make the motion.
I'm not allowed to make the motion, so is there a motion to approve that?
I'll make the motion, but we've got to figure out the wording, how you, authorizing One South Euclid. So I just move to authorize One South Euclid to serve as the fiscal agent for the Mayfield Road Rock the Block Event Committee. Such responsibilities as fiscal agent also would include having legal counsel review any contracts or agreements that this group would enter into. The event takes place Saturday, June 13th, 2015, from 12 to 8 on Mayfield between South Green and Belleville.
Perfect. Is there a second?
Second. Oh, go ahead.
Go. Go.
And just a note to those of you who are joining us today, our legal counsel is paid on a monthly basis. They're on a retainer, and so we pay them a fixed sum, and they review whatever comes their way. It could be one item a month, or 2 items a month, or it could be 10. It's the same. It doesn't cost us anymore. So,
Who is it?
Who is it? It's do you know
More Yorkovich.
More, yeah.
More in Yorkovich.
More in Yorkovich.
Devo. They added a partner.
They added a partner. What's that? Devo?
Devo.
Oh, Devo. I thought
Natalie.
Devo.
Natalie Devo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next on the agenda for new business is
we need to vote.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes. Roll call on the motion.
Keith Benjamin.
Aye.
Karen Polking.
Aye.
Ron Sanderson.
Aye.
Pam O'Toole. Aye. Austin Welter.
All right.
Anthony Holman. Angie Pullman.
I think I need to start drinking caffeine about 3 hours before meetings because it's definitely a little different doing these in the morning than mid-afternoon. My brain is not quite functioning. So, all right, next item under new business is legislative update on the status of the renewal of One South Euclid's agreement with the City of South Euclid. Do you want me to do that, or Mike, why don't you go ahead and sort of talk about the history of that agreement?
Sure. So the city and One South Euclid have an agreement that sort of governs what One South Euclid actually does. And this agreement comes up for renewal this year and will need eventually approval from City Council. When Karen does the governance committee report, she will mention that there's a new board member orientation on March 20th. And at that time, going over the agreement will be part of that orientation session. And basically, the agreement allows the city to allocate property to One South Euclid, which One South Euclid can then sell. And this is residential property that Sally was talking about earlier in the meeting. It also allows for One South Euclid to apply for grants, to function as sort of the city's organization that puts on events for the community and those types of things. So that will be something that will be coming up sooner rather than later for renewal this year. But at the orientation session, March 20th, we're going to be going over that agreement, I think, as part of it so that you kind of get an understanding of it and then are prepared to potentially make changes to it before it goes back to City Council to be renewed for a period of 3 or possibly longer years, depending on what we decide to take to council. But this first agreement that's in effect currently was a 3-year agreement.
And Sally, could you give just a 2-minute overview, since the resale and the housing issues, just kind of how it works, how it flows, what City Council authorizes One South Euclid to do?
Because of the housing and foreclosure crisis, we had an unprecedented opportunity to start taking parcels. In the past, the city had only taken parcels into its land bank that were vacant land, vacant tracts of land. We'd never taken structures into the land bank. There was no appetite to do that because of liability issues. With the advent of One South Euclid, we began to accept structures into the city's land bank. But we needed a disposition strategy, so we had gone to council to ask for approval to be able to have an option agreement with One South Euclid for any of these parcels in the city's land bank, which we actually, every time a new one comes in, we go back for legislative approval for that specific parcel. So this agreement by no means gives us carte blanche to take anything in the city's land bank. We still have to get a piece of legislation passed every time we want to do that. But it has facilitated 20 some odd transactions over the past couple of years, which has been very lucrative for us and good for the city, as you could see with that home that we thought was a teardown selling for 105. And this program has been a catalyst for a lot of positive change. So I have no reason to believe City Council would not approve this again, given its track record and what we've been able to achieve. But as I said, the flow of these properties is slowing down. So essentially, when I find out something has been transferred into the city's land bank through tax foreclosure, and there's a few methods. Sometimes we get things through tax foreclosure. Sometimes we actually go out and negotiate what we call a deed in lieu of tax foreclosure. So we'll go to the delinquent owner of the property and we'll say, how about, we get the county to approve and you sign the property over to us, and in return you don't, you're off the hook for paying those property taxes. So we've gotten a couple that way. We've even had some, interesting other things, where we're getting properties through, there's the National Community Stabilization Trust, which is a clearinghouse for all the big banks like Bank of America, who will want to get rid of some of these assets, and then we'll donate it to a city or a nonprofit, and the city has taken those into the land bank. We've gotten legislation to move them. The advantage there is that One South Euclid never holds property, which has been a good thing for us in terms of liability. We never have to hold things in our name. We don't have any legal liability. So essentially, we're transferring properties the day we get them, so that it's just sort of goes from the city to One South Euclid to the final buyer. So that's how it works. Hello, Mayor.
Hi there. And hello, Stacy. Do you want to just quickly introduce yourself?
Stacy Ward Braxton, resident of South Euclid for 16 years, and also owner of the Significance Group and co-pastor of New Life Cathedral.
Welcome.
At a historic church down on Euclid Avenue. Euclid Avenue by Ivanhoe.
Yeah, I was stuck with all the snow.
I know what it's like.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm glad you were able to join us. Okay, so I have one additional new item of new business to discuss. A couple months ago, or actually over a year ago, I approached the school district on working to positively promote youth engagement with our residents in South Euclid, and try to come up with some ideas to help motivate and inspire them and help them develop skills, and also work on some of the perceptual issues that there are within the community. And then a couple months ago, the state of Ohio decided that they were decided to launch a new program, a grant program called Community Connectors, which is providing $10 million in lottery profits, 3-to-1 matching grants. That is more or less a mentoring program to work with our youth. And I then attended a workshop. Sonia was there as well. And out of that, I then approached the school district regarding a potential collaborative application. And they were kind of overwhelmed because they're dealing with so much related to funding and their strategic plan. But I met with the superintendent and with Melissa Thompson, who's the director of pupil services, and Melissa then called me back late last week and said, can we get a meeting together immediately? We think we could do something really, really great and responsive with this. So yesterday afternoon, for about 2.5 hours until about 6:30 in the evening, Melissa and I held a meeting with faith-based congregations. Pastor Austin was there as well, and we discussed submitting the grant, which is due March 6th. To be a part of the grant, the school district needs, number one, the city cannot apply for the grant. The city can be a component of the grant but cannot apply for the grant. The school district needs a nonprofit to serve as the fiscal agent, and also needs partnerships with faith-based communities. So what I would like to do is, and let me just talk about really quickly the 5 core principles of this program from the state. It's setting goals to be prepared for the 21st century careers, working with youth on building character, developing pathways to their achievement, helping them build a sense of resiliency and a belief in a positive future. So we're putting together our collaborators, which will include then the faith-based organizations, community nonprofits, and for-profit businesses as well. And there are some of you in this room that will be approaching over the course of the next week or so. Melissa and I have set up 3 meetings in the next 9 days to kind of work on setting up the grant and getting our partners in place and begin working on the budget. So, however, with that, we need a lead applicant, a nonprofit lead applicant, and to serve as the fiscal agent for this. It will not cost One South Euclid any funding at this point in time. If One South Euclid, if we are funded for this project and One South Euclid decides then to become a participant, obviously we would come back to One South Euclid and the board and ask for consideration of a contribution. But we're looking at several different mentoring projects and the potential of actually housing most of the programs at St. John's Lutheran Church. South Euclid United Church of Christ was also there. Philosophy Church was there. They don't have a space, but they have a lot of people resources, human resources that they can help as well. So I'd like to see if we could get a motion today to allow One South Euclid to serve as the lead applicant and fiscal agent for the community's application for the Community Connectors program. And Sonia, I don't want to put you on the spot at all, but I know that you attended sort of the Ohio Department of Education's overview and maybe have some thoughts about the program.
I think it's a wonderful opportunity for a community like South Euclid. That's a first-ring suburb that's starting to experience some of the same challenges that are typically occurring in the urban corridor, to really get engaged with youth. I think also particularly because South Euclid at this time doesn't have a hub for that, like a rec center, that it also could give us a programmatic way to tie together the resources that do exist in the community to provide some support to youth. I would be very, very thoughtful though about outcomes. I think oftentimes when you get sort of large grant opportunities like this, it's easy to start to go through money and not really see something significant happen for youth on the other end. So whatever I can do to assist with that, I'd be happy to do.
Thank you. Great. Appreciate it.
Can I make a point too that I'm going to guess, Keith, that this, if we were the lead applicant and we did get this grant, it would position us well with other funders since we've managed a significant grant.
Yes.
It's a very unique opportunity for this group.
Yes. Yes. Agreed. And that's what Melissa Thompson, that's what we talked about last night. And it was all about measurement and data-driven application. and not taking on more that we can chew. It's going to be based on per pupil. You know, our budgets is going to be a per pupil cost, and you know, we want to start with, you know, if we can only handle 60 to 80 students, we're going to stick to that, and if it's successful, we'll find the money and the resources to grow a program if necessary.
Start small and
Yeah.
learn a lot from it and do
Yeah.
better for more.
So, Pastor, do you have any comments from the meeting?
Just to echo what you guys have already said, I mean, it's a great opportunity for us, and I think it'd be cool to see One South Euclid act as that fiscal agent and to help apply for that. It's a lot of really good opportunity for our kids.
And I would only go back one more time to Ann, our CPA in the room, but I'm guessing your answer before applies to this as well, as far as cautions and connections. Sounds like Austin. you have
Yeah,
a connection there,
although actually I'm somewhat more comfortable by this because there's obviously lots of layers and lots of other, again, organizations that are going to do it right.
Grantors generally check what you do anyways, too.
Yeah.
You have to
That's
get a
right,
set of
that's
guidelines.
right, exactly.
It's
That's
different
what-
from this
right.
other.
Especially this
From,
year.
and you know,
Yeah.
all due respect, but from a bunch of bars getting together and having a party.
That's why we have the professional in the room.
Okay, so is there a motion? Can I have a motion to approve?
So, just to clarify too, One South Euclid would be the lead applicant then too?
Yes.
Okay, so I would like to move that One South Euclid be the lead applicant on the Community Connectors grant application and serve as its fiscal agent should the grant be awarded.
Is there a second?
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Steve Benjamin.
Aye.
Karen Polking.
Aye.
Ron Sanderson.
Aye.
Pam O'Toole. Aye. Austin Walter.
Aye.
Anthony Holman.
Aye.
Angie Pullman.
All right, a motion has been approved.
Write that down.
Are there any other comments or questions related to any new business? Is there any new business that we've not discussed? All right, hearing none, we get to the exciting part of the agenda. And we'll move to governance committee presentation. Karen.
Yes, thank you. I know that the mayor's here and she's going to give us a swearing-in ceremony, but we do have a report. We owe you an explanation of how we got to where we got. You know, several years ago there were 3-5 people in the room, then we moved to 7, and now where we're from. And we've done it in quite a short period of time. So that being said, how did we get there? The One South Euclid Board engaged in strategic planning. At the previous meeting, they approved such plan. With doing that, and I think you all have a copy of that strategic plan. If you need another one, please let me know, but I thought I emailed it out to all of you. So you have a feel for what vision or where we'd like to see the organization and the city go in the next about 5 years, 3 to 5 years. But with that strategic planning, we also had to adjust our bylaws to coincide with what we want to do. And originally, as I said, the bylaws, I think, allowed for a maximum of 9 members. We had 7. If you read the bylaws, or you'll get a copy of the bylaws, they now allow for a range of people on the board. And that range is no less than 15, but no more than 21. And we went to that size so that the work of the board can occur. It's tough when you have, 5, 7 volunteers. The city folks have been fabulous. We had advisory council members, committee members, but this will give us more meat and more impetus and more impact. So in addition to that no less than 15 and no more than 21, the bylaws also called for the mayor and the president of city council to appoint a representative, a non-voting representative to the board, and their terms would be 1 year. So if you add it all up, we'll have not less than 17 and not more than 23 people on the board at any given time. That's the goal. Can't get there overnight, but that is ultimately the goal. It's been busy, and I think looking around the room for the governance committee and the members of One South Euclid, we had our work cut out for us to go from the 7 members to hopefully get to as close as to the 15 as we could. And, I want to thank everybody in the room, you newcomers, and also the members who were on the advisory council, members who are on committees, volunteers, because we wouldn't be here, and we all know that, and we have to verbally, and I want it in the minutes, that we thank you for all of your work, your support. You brought forward excellent recommendations. You helped cultivate those relationships, and so we're really at a good point in our history and our development, and we owe a debt of thanks to all of you in the room for that. And to that end, I hope you don't step away feeling like maybe you're no longer needed to give us the information and the support and the help. We only want it to grow further and deeper, so don't. The reorganization is just that, to be more effective in working. It's not meant to be anything else but that. So that being said, what we did is asked for names of people who could serve, who had a passion for the city, a commitment to the city, and to the mission of One South Euclid. It wasn't about getting bodies to fill seats. It was about getting the right people in the right seats at the right time. So we've been busy because of the timing of all of this. But that being said, we reached out to 15 individuals initially to see about joining the board. Of the 15, 8 accepted the nomination. Right, after obviously conversations, they need to know more about the organization, what's the commitment, what are we going to be doing. Hopefully you have those answers, those questions answered. So we had 15 people joining 6 of the 7 that originally were on the board. We had 6 members of the board who agreed to renew their membership, and we have 8 who are joining them. We really have good retention because the board member who is not going to step up as a board member is shifting his position, and Keith will be the representative of City Council. So we have 100% retention of our former board members, which is a good thing for knowledge-based consistency and so forth. Of the other members that we went out and spoke to, there are 6 others. I did my math right. Actually 7 others. One may join us, is still considering, needs a little more information. And of the 6 others who declined at this point, it wasn't a no, flat out no. There was still, wow, I'm really interested in what your organization stands for. It's just not a good time. You know, I'm pretty committed, I'm pretty busy. But they did ask, and I agreed, and I think my colleagues agreed too. We'll keep them apprised of what we're doing, keep them posted, because they like to help on committee work. And, you know, you drop the pebble in the pond, and that's what we need, is to get all the volunteers to help us out. So we'll keep them connected, and who knows, at some point they may decide to join the board. It might be a better time in their professional life, personal life, or whatever. So we have now the 6 returning members. We have 8 signing on board. And so we haven't reached that less than 15. We're at 14. That being said, we're not done recruiting candidates for the board. The governance committee will continue to take names, so those of you who have names or suggestions or thoughts about somebody who might be a good fit for the organization, bring them forward, and the governance committee will meet, and we will recruit them to join the board. And we'd hope to, if we could bring some more board members on through June, we'd like to do so, and then we'll come back to filling board members in the February meeting next year. We'll pick up with this exercise. Any questions on that? Board members' terms are 3 years. The way the bylaws were set up, board members originally served for 1 year and were asked to renew their membership after a year's completion. But now we've gone to the 3-year term. And board members can serve 2 consecutive 3-year terms. After you've served 2 consecutive 3-year terms, if that's what occurs, you have to step away from service for 1 year. And then you can always return. Doesn't mean, and for that year, hopefully, if you're really interested in working on the board, you can join a committee, you can stay with committee work, volunteer, whatever fits your schedule. If you looked at the handout in the packet, the names of the individuals, and I'll go through that in just a minute, the names of the individuals are provided here. The candidates are there. We had to put people into classes. Did that handout go out, Michael? Page 2 of the slate of candidates has the list of classes. I have it here. At the bottom of the second page, We put people in classes, and I want to explain that for just a minute. It's a common practice for boards to have staggered membership, and that's to protect the board. At any given time, you don't want a whole bunch of people vacating the board and all of their hard work and knowledge and institutional memory go out the door with it. So we've organized folks into classes, recognize that if it says here your term is expiring in 2016 or 2017, you still can serve another consecutive term, and if it's less than 2 years, you get yet another term. And it sounds confusing. It isn't meant to be, but we had to start somewhere to divvy people up so that we can have a cycle of membership, new blood coming in every year, while other people feel they have to step down. So if you have questions on that, please don't hesitate to ask. So that being said, what we have going today is, Mr. President, I would like to submit the slate of board members as proposed by the Governance Committee, whose terms will be effective immediately. And those board members, we've all introduced ourselves, so for the sake of time, those board members whose names are included on the slate of nominations are Jay Boland, Theron Cyrus, Tom Dank, Greg McCarthy, Al Painter, Veronica Walton, Stacy Ward Braxton, and Len Calabrese.
There on the list here, there's additional nominations will be accepted. Today, are there any additional nominations? I know that the Governance Committee had met with Sonia Pryor-Jones, who was seeking more information before.
I'm still under consideration.
Still,
All under
great,
consideration.
great. Well, I'm really happy that you came to listen and learn. So thank you. Okay. All right, the nominations have been called, and now it's time to vote on our slate of nominations. Is there a motion to elect to the Board of One South Euclid the nominations as named by Karen Polking from the Governance Committee?
Yes, I move that the slate of board members as proposed by the Governance Committee to serve as the board members of One South Euclid effective immediately and according to the terms assigned to the individual members of the slate.
It's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Anthony Holman. All those in favor, roll call.
Keith Benjamin.
Aye.
Karen Polking.
Aye.
Yvonne Sanderson.
Aye.
Pam O'Toole. Aye. Austin Walter.
Aye.
Anthony Holman.
Aye.
Angie Pullman.
Aye.
All right. Welcome. Welcome.
Yay.
Yay.
Yay. Thanks for being
All right. So next is swearing in, or do you have anything
Well,
else?
I think we ought to put on the record, even though it's not terribly necessary, we'd like to announce the appointment of Keith Benjamin as the representative to One South Euclid on behalf of City Council. I'd like to move, or I'd just like to have it acknowledged, not who you are. You can't move in a motion.
But I can move right out of this.
Don't make the council president.
In her presence.
But I'd like to acknowledge and thank Keith for everything that he's done. Keith has been a wonderful, valuable president. I think you all would agree. I'm delighted he's going to be with us as the city council representative going forward. He brings added insight as to Sally and Dan and Meg, all the people from the city. And we need that insight. They have details and information. And if the two groups and entities are going to collaborate, cooperate, work together, and partner, it's the best thing that we can have. Good organization. I know, Mayor, you'll bring us your representative. You didn't have a lot of lead time to work on this. I told you we were busy. We had our last board meeting January 8th, and so between January 8th and February 5th, we've put this together. So kudos to everybody in the room.
This, One South Euclid, or establishing a CDC, was an idea presented to City Council back in 2006, along with two other items. One was the establishment of a community revitalization area that covers the entire city. to deal with what we were just beginning to see in terms of issues with homes going into foreclosure. And at that time, it was specifically because of predatory lenders in our community. And the second piece of that was the city establishing its own land bank. And that was before, at that point, Treasurer Rokakis, County Treasurer Rokakis, had instituted the county land bank to deal with these issues. So the city was really years ahead of its time. And the CDC was sort of the last piece that didn't get implemented until 2010, 11?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was created in 2009, but it was 2011.
11 before we really were able to establish the organization. And the impetus behind that was the fact that the city and the building and Sally had been working on establishing the Green Neighborhoods Initiative. We had received all of the stimulus funds, over $1 million in stimulus funds from the federal government, from HUD, to help manage and deal with the housing and foreclosure crisis, and had really successfully created a very innovative program through the Green Neighborhoods Initiative to save neighborhoods. And with that money drying out, with the stimulus dollars going away, we really needed a new tool, a creative tool to take over and focus on housing revitalization. And Sally, working with members of the county, came up with a really incredible solution, creative idea in terms of the city taking property from the county land bank and then transferring it to One South Euclid. And because of that, One South Euclid, not only have we helped save our neighborhoods and stabilize our neighborhoods, but One South Euclid, over the course of the last 3 years, has been very fiscally responsible, and we have not really spent any money, as you have seen. We have collected over $100,000, and we have over $100,000 in the bank now. And the reason why we've really not spent that money, outside of starting a couple new events, the South Euclid Harvest Fest and the Greenfield Community Garden Project, but the reason why we've not spent that money is because we knew we needed to do a strategic plan first and grow the board so that the money programs could be developed to utilize those funds effectively and appropriately in the community in a way that has the most impact into our residential neighborhoods and to our business districts as well. So that now becomes, I think, the big job for this board over the course of the next year, is really working on and looking at different ideas to create programs, to create grant programs or revolving loan programs, so that this money can now be effectively spent and impactful back into the community. And number 2 on the list is now raising money. We don't know, it's a good thing that the foreclosures are going away and that they're drying up, but so is our revenue source. And so, now we have to really look at outside funding and fundraisers and grant funding and other partnerships as well to begin raising some money. So I thank everyone in this room for caring so much about South Euclid and the community. Never thought we would get to this point. I really never thought. We grew so quickly in 3 years. We had $2,000 in the bank, and now we have over $100,000, and we're being recognized across the country for the great things that the city is doing and One South Euclid is doing. So thank you so much for everything. It's been really been an honor, and I look forward to staying on as a board member. And with that, we'll go to oath of office for the mayor.
So I just wanted to interject. I'm Mayor Wheelo. I know most of you know me, and if you don't, you'll get to know me. Last night, my husband Carter and I were speaking because we always talk about the week. And, Carter said, so you're swearing in the officers and the new board members? And I said, yes. And he says, do you remember, Georgine, back in the 80s when Arnold D'Amico appointed myself? Arnold D'Amico was the mayor. Myself and Mo Romeo and Bud Unger and Ronnie DeRose to the CDC. And the CDC met, and they kept trying, and to no fault of their own, there was just no understanding, and there just seemed to be no need to understand what the CDC could do. And it was so critical that that they really formulated a plan, and they got a streetscape, because at the time the state was widening Mayfield Road and took away all the front end parking for all the retail on Mayfield Road. And the school district sold the big jewel in the middle of the city, Victory Park School, where everyone came every day. So they saw the merchants, and they could pull in and pull out. And the War Memorial was there, and there were baseball diamonds. And
an ox roast.
And an ox roast, which would be great to come back. And Notre Dame, right, and maybe Regina's front yard, but I was throwing it out. At the South Euclid 100th anniversary in 2017. Give me the
Well, let me
floor.
write that.
Yeah. So Carter talked about this, and he talked about the loss of community, and he talked about what it meant to the business owners, and how it has been a fledgling process to bring people in with this 5-lane highway and no front end parking, and missing the school. And I saw a twinkle in my husband's eye, and he said, Georgie, he said, you always tell me government moves slow, but I never thought it moved this slow. But he said it gives you an opportunity to maybe really take on these different projects and ideas, and not in just the neighborhoods, but in the businesses. When you go and stand at Mayfield and Green, way up in the sky is Pastor Welter's steeple. That kind of points to where the center of town is. And with that, you see that during the 50s, where Anthony now will have his third business, was built because of, everyone coming back from the war and the increase of population. And then you go to Cedar Center, where our first neighborhood, the 5 streets behind it, attend the Cleveland Heights University Heights School District. And those 5 streets always say, Mayor Wheelo, where do we belong? Do we belong in South Euclid, where our homes rely and we rely on our neighbors? But our school district is different, and our libraries are different. And I made a pledge to them that we would bring them back into the fold, and they were important. And you start looking at all of this, and you start going into the neighborhoods and the beautiful homes and the neighborhood associations that Yvonne and Pam brought in, and the programs that Meg tries to develop on a shoestring budget, and what Dan has done with gardens, and Michael with economic development, and Sally Martin with housing. But none of that matters unless this organization really comes in, because you're the missing piece. You're a nonprofit, and you're a group that is apolitical, and you have only the goodness of your hearts to serve. So for me, this is a dream come true. It's something we've worked really hard on. I have to thank the board. I know Kevin Marr is not here. I know Kevin retired and is moving on to his great life. But for this group of members, my heartfelt thanks. You always kept me updated, and I have to tell you, you won't see me much unless I'm really invited. I feel it's an independent group, and it needs to stay that way. With that, I'm going to swear in the new members, and I also have oaths to swear in the current members. And then after that, we will swear in the 4 officers. So with that, if you are a member of the board, please raise your right hand and repeat after me.
Current,
everybody.
Oh,
Everybody. Would you answer? And when I say I, just say your name, and then we'll go from there. I. Sounds good. Do solemnly swear. That I will support the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of Ohio.
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
that I will faithfully,
honestly,
and impartially discharge
the
duties as an ex officio board member of the South Euclid Community Urban Redevelopment Corporation 1 South Euclid during my term in said office. In the term commencing on February 5th, 2015, and expiring on the date of the annual meeting in the year 2016.
No, that's
Oh, 2006.
Or 2016, yeah.
Oh, yeah, 2016.
It
Depending on us.
Oh, yeah, you're all
Depending on our
date.
appointment.
Okay, so
Everybody always signs.
everybody's signing your own date.
Right.
All right.
Congratulations. And then Michael's going to have you sign those, I'll sign those, and then my assistant's going to notarize them. Okay, so then, would you like to do these individually, or do you want me to do them together?
Well, we have
haven't
to.
done the motion.
Oh, you haven't done the motion? Oh, okay,
Adjourn
sorry.
and then.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Are you?
I'm good. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm good till 10.
Okay, so we are going to adjourn the regular meeting of 1 South Euclid, and then we will re-adjourn to select the slate of candidates for the 1 South Euclid Board of Directors. So, go ahead.
Before we adjourn, if I could just remind you all, if you could, I realize that you didn't have a lot of advance notice, but the orientation session is March 20th at 8 o'clock in the morning. It will not be more, an hour and 15 minutes. We'll try to keep it to that. Maybe if you mark 90 minutes, that makes it safe so you could get out. And if you would be so kind as to complete the candidate questionnaire and email back that information, I'd appreciate it. We'll use that to help place you on committees, and we also will use your brief bio and information about yourself because I'd like to get the word out who our new board members are. So, thank you.
And before we officially adjourn this part of the meeting, if you look at number 7 on the agenda, they're just upcoming meetings and events. We don't have to go through those, but they're on there for just so you can put them in your calendar. And for those of you who are here today and are still considering membership on the board, I encourage you to really consider joining us. And if you need another meeting or so to sit in, please take your time. You would be very. I think you're the only one in the room. You would be very valuable, Sonia. We would love to have you.
Thank you. You know who you are now.
We know you're really busy.
so nice to meet you.
Okay, so is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay. Roll call to adjourn. Do we do that?
Yeah, I think if there
Yeah.
are
Okay.
no objections.
All right. No objections. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. The regular meeting is adjourned.